Because it's so undersaturated, just from what I've seen. I wanted a career where it was niche. So if I was to move to California tomorrow, I could still be an insurance agent. I could pick up and go. But I saw when I was looking on social media, there was nobody that looked like me that was prominent out there talking about insurance. Insurance is a more than $3 trillion industry, and less than 3% of it is black.
Welcome to another episode of the More Than an Agent podcast, where we interview Black insurance agents that are making an impact in community, culture, and industry. I'm excited about today's conversation, as always. Took a little break, had some things come up in Q1 where we had to make some adjustments, but we are back and really looking forward to some dope interviews. This guest I have today, speaking of being back, is a returning guest. We had Mr. Kenny Jones on a while back. Kenny, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Happy Friday.
Yeah, same to you. Same to you. Interestingly enough, I was looking this up when I was preparing for the podcast because we've been kind of going back and forth for a little over a month, trying to get something scheduled, and we finally worked it out. And I went back and looked at the last time you were on. Do you know last time you were on was April 7th, 2022?
Really?
Almost 3 years to
Yeah.
the date this is going to drop.
Yeah.
And that was, to this date, one of our most watched podcasts.
Oh, wow.
So I expect nothing less from this one. So again, thanks for joining me, Kenny.
Absolutely.
3 years, man. I follow you on social media, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But what's been going on? I mean, let's do it this way, because I know it's a lot been going on. Like I say, I follow you on social media. What would you say has been the biggest change from when we talked to you 3 years ago to today?
My coaching program, my mentorship program, I would say.
Okay.
Just the amount of agents that I've been able to help successfully, them starting their agencies, them, reaching out to me saying, I was working part-time in this and now I'm full-time and I have a staff because of your program really means a lot to me. Of course, I've had significant growth on the agency side as well, but the one thing that I really want to get into full-time is coaching. And that's something that's been on my vision board, something I've written down. So to see that come to pass has been honestly amazing.
Yeah, I saw that. And we definitely going to dig into that because I saw, like I said, I follow you on social media. I saw the coaching program. I think that's dope and much needed,
Yeah.
right? It's definitely needed. So you're in Charlotte, correct? Charlotte,
Correct.
North Carolina. Is that where you're originally from?
So I'm from Clayton, North Carolina, which is the other side of Raleigh. I went to school at A&T, Aggie Pride. And
Okay.
after graduating there in 2018, I came to Charlotte. So I've been in Charlotte since 2018. It was just somewhere that was close that I wanted to move to. It was a big city. Then I just fell in love with it. I have some business roots here. I have actually some family here and some really great friends as well. So I don't really see myself going anywhere because whenever I travel, I'm always like, I miss home, which is Charlotte. So I don't see myself going anywhere.
No, that makes sense. So you don't fit the mold of a traditional insurance agent, right?
Yeah.
Anybody that follows you on social media kind of sees, the way that, you operate as an agent.
Mhm.
How did you what drew you to the industry? Because I mean, you look like whatever you put your hand to, you have the potential to be successful. You just have that type of personality and work ethic from what I've seen. Why insurance?
Because it's so undersaturated, just from what I've seen. I wanted a career where it was niche. So if I was to move to California tomorrow, I could still be an insurance agent. I could pick up and go. But I saw when I was looking on social media, there was nobody that looked like me that was prominent out there talking about insurance. Insurance is a more than $3 trillion industry, and less than 3% of it is black. But we all have insurance, whether it's life insurance, homeowners, auto, whatever that looks like. We have that insurance, but we're not the ones educating our community about it. So I just wanted to be, that figure in my community and on social media platforms to just help people better understand insurance and let them know it's not as scary as you think it is.
Yeah. No, that's really important. And again, with you not fitting the mold is part of your mission to kind of change the perspective and face
Right.
of the industry, because like you say, when you got into the industry, like you looked around, and a lot of us have this story, right? This is not a career that's talked about in most of our families, as something to look into after high school, college, or whatever. This is not, typically that conversation. Like nobody's saying, hey, go get your insurance license in most of our communities. So, for you, representation sounds like it's important. Do you feel like you're having some type of impact by the way that you move as an agent and with the things that you are doing to kind of get some eyes that typically don't look at this industry as a career to now start looking?
I do. I just get a lot of feedback from my YouTube specifically because I show my day in the life. And when people think about getting into insurance, it's always by the leads. The more you call, the more you sell. When in reality, insurance is a relationship building business. I've closed, some incredible deals. I've been at Kamala Harris's home. I've been at professional athletes' home, not because I'm calling cold leads, but because I'm getting out there, networking, and building these relationships. If you build these relationships, the referrals will come. I wake up to referrals every day in my email because I built these relationships. So,
Now, I don't want to gloss over that because I did see that post on your social media where you were at Kamala Harris' house. Talk about that. How did that come about?
right place, right time, and just networking. One of my frat brothers from college actually works for the DNC, and she was doing this thing where she wanted to highlight a lot of successful Black businesses in America, and he immediately thought of me. He got me in contact with her team, and originally she came to Charlotte for her economic opportunities tour, going to every city, talking about what she was going to do for the economy. And then from there, she invited me, or her team invited me to her home for pretty much like a part two. It was in her backyard. They had the food, the drinks, a lot of really successful people in different industries were there. And I thought that was just amazing, to see how far I've come in my business. I've been in business now 4.5 years. And to think that, the vice president of the, at the time knew like what my business was, who I was, just really, gave me that fire to keep going.
How important is networking?
It's the most important thing in the business. Like you can have all the systems, and something that I see in coaching is people are always saying, "Well, I got to have everything perfect." You don't. Look at any big brand. Look at McDonald's, for example. McDonald's doesn't look like how they looked 20 years ago. You just have to get started, and as you grow in your business, it'll start to align with pretty much the finished product. But you have to get out there and network because you can have all the perfect systems, all the programs, but if you have no one to speak to, no one to sell to, no one to network with, it's pointless. This is a income generating business. If you're not generating income, your life's going to be off. So,
Yeah, and you made a really good point. Sales, especially in our community, is not just transactional,
mhm.
right? It's relational, and we've always had that kind of connection in our community. We're a very tight knit community in a lot of cases. We just don't work with anybody. There's that trust factor. And most people want to work with someone that looks like them, right? So as we expand our presence in the industry, it gives us the opportunity to do more things in our community. And you're right on. Those end up being relationships that are built through trust and spending time and not just going in and dropping a product, right?
Right,
That doesn't work typically for our community. And I always joke saying, a lot of my clients treat me like family.
right,
They'll call and, see how I'm doing. They'll invite me to church. Sometimes they invite me over to dinner or whatever. That's a different type of relationship that we have. So, even when it comes to peer relationships, it's a tough industry, right? You got to have people you can lean on that understand you. That's one of the reasons we created Sober, is because, to your point, when I got in the industry, 99% of the rooms I was in was full of people that didn't look like me. So, and then your family, unless, you have a family that has an insurance background, which we typically don't, they don't
right.
want to hear about what I'm doing in insurance. They don't want to hear about my clients and products and all that. So it's really hard to find people to connect with. So I definitely agree. Networking is important, not only from a business perspective, but on a personal level as well. Just getting around people that understand.
Absolutely.
It
No,
doesn't even have to be the same industry. I mean, I work with, realtors, very similar background, commission based, sales. They're out there prospecting, trying to get in front of people. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, other agents, but just networking with people that you can relate to and can relate to you.
Yeah, because I network with a lot of realtors as well. They're one of my biggest referral partners, even if it's not for homeowners insurance. These people that are buying homes, that's one of the biggest investments you're ever going to make. You need to make sure it's protected if something happens to you. So I get a lot of referrals from them. But like you said, it is very similar, and that's the approach that I took when starting to market my business. Because you get on any type of TV network, you see all these luxury listings, and they have these TV shows and real estate, real estate, real estate. And I thought to myself, why is no one glamorizing insurance? So that's pretty much the approach that I've taken, and that's how I've been able to win a lot of high end clients is because I have two name tags. I have one that says insurance broker, but then I have one that says luxury insurance broker, just depending on the room that I go into, because people of high value love exclusivity. So if they never heard of a luxury insurance broker and they're like, oh, well, we didn't even know this existed, now I'm marketing to an entirely different demographic.
That's dope. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So, I agree. I've connected with a lot of realtors, and they get a lot of looks because they do have the $1 million listings, and they're taking photos and videos in beautiful homes with pools and views and all kinds of stuff. And then there's us, right? Like, what can we show that's attractive? Here's $1 million policy. I mean, okay, whatever. And people, a lot of times your clients don't want to get on camera because they don't want their family knowing what they got. So it's
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not going to do, I'll give you a testimonial, I'll write some,
Right,
but I'm
right,
not doing
right.
a video. So I think what you're doing is really smart. And that's what I love about watching some of your social media, the day in the life and
Yeah.
all of that, which I'm going to dig into a little bit more. But I want to get a little bit more into your background. What did you do before insurance?
So I was in sales. So after I graduated from college, I went to Enterprise Rent a Car. It was their management trainee program. Like it's like one of those things, if you know, you know. But I was there for about 2 years. I moved up the rank a little bit, but it really wasn't what I expected it to be. We were outside washing cars in suits. It was a mess, but they sold us, this dream coming out of college, and I didn't have anything else lined up, and they offered me $42,000, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm rich," like $42,000 coming out of college. I can't beat it. Then I realized rent was high, and yeah, that money was quickly gone. But I was there for 2 years. When I left, I was making maybe 55,000. But I knew I wanted to do something that had more purpose. And so many times, like while I was at Enterprise, people would come up to me, like renting a car, and be like, "You should get into insurance." Like it just kept happening. And then before that, before I graduated college, I took the insurance exam. So this was 2018, but my uncle ended up getting in a really bad car accident. He was in ICU during the whole like Christmas break, and that was when I was studying. So my focus was pretty much over there. But it's so crazy. What I would tell anyone, it's all about timing and alignment. Like that wasn't the time that I was supposed to be in there, but because I was patient, it came back around tenfold in the year 2020. So it's just about being patient, and if it doesn't work out right then and there, it doesn't mean that it's never going to work out. It just wasn't the time. Because had I not gone to in Enterprise, or had I not gone to State Farm, I wouldn't have had the gratitude of working for myself, having the freedom, and then I also learned how to not run a business from those organizations. So everything happened, for a reason.
Yeah. Enterprise. Okay. So you were doing sales, you were working at Enterprise.
Mhm.
Do you feel like any of the skills that you acquired at Enterprise were transferable and used in your insurance career?
Absolutely, because it was heavy sales. So we had a lot of sales trainings, building rapport with the customer, talking to them about the product, the importance of the education piece. Don't just sell, sell, sell. And I was under one of the top salespeople in the region. Like she was the one that was training me, so I learned a lot from there, and I was great at it. Whenever I'm great at something, I want to nurture it, I want to feed it. So I knew that even when I leave enterprise, I want to still be in sales, but more on a face of I'm able to help people and educate people and potentially change people's lives. And that's what I've been able to do, with insurance, getting those calls from the beneficiary saying, my mother passed away. Did she have a policy? And then, I can say yes, you know what I mean? And now they're not worried about how they're going to pay for the funeral or how they're going to continue with life. So I'm really grateful that I went to Enterprise, even though I do talk a lot of like junk about like me being there, but it was necessary for me to get to this point. Every step of my life has molded me to be the person that I am today to handle this level of success, this level of entrepreneurship that I don't think I would be at this spot without me going through those things before.
Yeah. No, that's dope. You were able to use those skills in your career. So you work with a lot of agents, right? What would you say are the three most important things agents need to be successful?
The first thing is you need a positive mindset. It all starts with mindset. When I started my business, I never said to myself, what if I fail? And so many agents are like, well, this and that. And honestly, those are all excuses. And I tell my agents that excuses keep you comfortable in your failures. Don't have an excuse. If you want to succeed, make no excuses. Just know that it's going to happen and trust in God. So that would be my first one. My second one is you have to have like grit. You got to have that hustle because sales is not an easy thing to do. You're going to get no's. I mean, people think I never get no's. No, they happen all the time. You know what I mean? But I keep going and I see the bigger picture. And the third thing I would say is you need integrity. You know, people do things in the insurance industry that give all the rest of us a bad rep, but what goes around comes around. It may not be now, it may be 10 years down the line, but if you have had integrity throughout the whole tenure of your business, you're never looking over your back or feeling uncomfortable like, well, what if they find this out? So I say if you have those three things, you can definitely be successful in this industry.
Love it. This is, you say you've been in the industry a little over 4 years now, about 4.5.
So July 2020 will make 5 years in the industry.
Okay.
Just
All right.
crazy to think
So, yeah, time flies, right?
lies.
I was just talking to a group of agents the other day. We were doing a training, and we were doing a SWOT training: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I was like, a lot of people only do this once a year, but I recommend we do it once a quarter. And we did one back in January, and we looked up and like, man, Q1 is over. Here we are looking at our businesses and how we performed in Q1 and strategized for Q2. But it seemed like January was kind of slow, but February and March, man, they were in and out.
Yeah.
And now it's like we're picking up momentum. We'll be looking up, and it'll be summertime. Then it'll be the holidays, and then it'll be the end of the year. We'll be talking about 2026. So really taking advantage of those opportunities to kind of slow down and strategize are important.
Mhm.
You said something that was interesting, in your tips. And I want to kind of dig into this a little bit. 90%, 90 plus percent of agents fail within their first 3 years. Why do you think that is? You gave some great tips on, what you need, but why do you think so many fail, even today?
It's two reasons. The first reason is they get under an organization, an IMO, that's not really worried about their success, but more so worried about recruiting.
Mm,
They get their license, they have all these companies calling and oh, you need to come work with us, we can give you this, we can give you that. And most of the time when people leave the insurance industry, they're not leaving the industry, they're leaving the management or their leadership. And they say, well, this is what the insurance industry is. I hated it, I'm out. And the second reason is because they think this is a get rich quick thing, and it's not. Like
mm,
I've been in business 4.5 years. I felt like I was comfortable maybe year two and a half in. So it takes time and you have to plant these seeds. You can't plant a seed today and expect there to be a full oak tree tomorrow. That's just not how it works. But people hear on these ads, I made $180,000 my first week in insurance and you can too. Like it's just not realistic. And even in the mentorship class, I tell them I'm giving you guys these tools to be well equipped in the industry, but you're not going to get rich overnight. If you do, that's amazing. But it's one of the like luck of the draw type thing. But realistically, most people are not getting rich in the first month, 2 months, 3 months in insurance. It takes time. But if you have the patience to wait and know that this is something that you want to do, you'll be successful. But the people that get out early are just in it for the money. And
yeah,
those are the people that we don't need in the industry because they're going to put the interest of their pockets before they put the interest of the client.
yeah. You sound like a real veteran, in the industry because those are all good points.
Thank you.
And you didn't fall obviously into that fail rate within the first 3 years, and a lot of businesses struggle at the beginning. Most businesses aren't profitable until year 3 or 4. But if you stick around, it does get easier. So, You said probably, after your second year or so, you started kind of feeling success and gaining momentum, but so many quit.
Mhm.
When you looked around and, kind of looked at, man, these people are dropping off left and right, people that, kind of got licensed around the same time I did, or that I knew were already in the industry or leaving. What helped you stay committed seeing all the failure around you?
I didn't pay attention to the failure. I was just so tunnel vision, and I knew that this had to work. I thought to myself, this has worked for so many people before me. Of course, it can work for me. Of course, people were dropping off left and right, but when they were dropping off, they were sending me on their business. So it was only elevating me even more. So I just looked at it as a blessing in disguise for me. Take that how you want. But I never was paying attention to people's journey because this is their life, and maybe insurance was just a stepping stone for them to get to a higher level that they're really destined for. So,
Yeah.
I wish them all the best, but I never really paid attention to any of that because distractions can really get you thrown off. And now you're looking over there. Like imagine driving a car and now you're looking at the person beside you. You're bound to get in an accident, but if you
Yeah.
get focused, you'll be successful.
No, and I'm sure your success has caused some people to take a second look at the industry because, to your point, it really is how you get brought into the industry really impacts the opportunity that you have, right?
Right.
I came into the industry, this makes year 22 for me, right? So when I came into the industry, I was in a captive situation, right? They controlled what products I sold and all that. And I didn't know any better, right? It was my first, introduction to the industry. I went to a couple of interviews. I figured, hey, these guys are making some money. Let me give it a try. And it was terrible, And at that point, I had two options. I could have been just like, insurance sucks. Let me go back to doing what I was doing before, or look at other opportunities. And that's what I did. I said, okay, all these people called me in for interviews. Let me go back and look at some of the other stuff that was being offered outside of the promise of high commissions,
Yeah.
right? And I got to see though, there's so many different things you can sell. You can sell, term insurance and whole life and annuities and IULs and Medicare and supplements and all kinds of stuff. And my first introduction was only two of those products. And then there's so many different carriers out here. There's I can't even tell you how many.
Yeah.
Companies that have been around for 100 plus years and all this. So I wasn't exposed to the full breadth of the opportunity. It was just what that little agency had to offer. And I think a lot of times that's what happens with agents, even if it's not a little agency. There's some big companies out here that are recruiting monsters, and you have either a love hate relationship with some of those. A lot of people have bought in and found success with those companies, and some have come in and struggled. And
Yeah.
I tell people, I don't care who you work for as long as it works for you,
Right.
right? Some people are like, oh, don't work for that company. If you're not doing anything unethical and you're able to provide for your family and have future opportunity for growth, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not against certain companies or whatever. Now, yeah, there's some out there that have some practices that are, frowned on. But if it works for you and you're not doing anything unethical, stay where it works for you. Sometimes people jump ship because somebody else promises something else and it never ends up being anything. And you just running from company to company to company. And I see that a lot as an agency owner. I always ask people, why'd you leave your last company?
Right.
Right? Was because you want to find out, is it them or is it you?
Yeah.
Right? Because if it's you, I don't want the headache. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so yeah, finding that connection is really important. With that, last time you were with us, you talked about the importance of family, right? Tell us how that's helped you in your career, having that support from your family. How's that helped you?
Just having a support system in general is, I mean, amazing. You know what I mean? I love my parents. They're both successful entrepreneurs, multimillionaires,
Nice.
both in the military and, just building a family. And it's nice to have that support and then also guidance from my parents because I've seen that they have grown these multi-million dollar businesses the right way. You don't really know what people are doing that you see online. I just met these people and I hope that they're going to give me the right, instructions, the right guidance. But with my parents, I've seen them, build their empire brick by brick. And, having that guidance, having that experience has helped me. And I feel like that's been a secret weapon because, whenever I'm making a huge business decision, I call them, they're on like what the board of trustees or they're on the advisory board for me because I've seen it work. So having, that support on the business side and then, just having my parents when I need to talk more so on the personal side because anything that I've been through in business, they've been through it 10 times, magnified or, whatever. So it's been great to just have them, and have their support through it all. And I'm just like super grateful for it.
Nah, that's dope. So you said when you came in the industry, like a lot of us, representation wasn't there for you. Do
Mhm.
you feel like outside of your parents that you've gotten a lot of support when it comes to your business?
Oh, like family wise or just in general?
Outside of family.
Yeah, like when I first started, my first 3 months of clients, they were just people from like A&T reaching out because I made a big deal about it on social media. And I would tell anybody that's launching a business or you're launching something within your business, make it a big deal, post it on social media, go all out because then people will realize, oh, this is something huge. So from there, I had so many Aggies that started, doing business with me. I gained roughly probably 15, 20 clients a month by just posting about it on social media and then Aggies telling other Aggies about it. So I was super grateful for my, Aggie fam that still shows me support to this day.
No, I love it. So you had the support of your community, right? You had the support of your family. What would you say to the agent that kind of feels like they're out there on their own? They don't have the family support. They don't have those connections to school or community. What would you say to those guys that are out there kind of struggling, trying to find their place?
You got to network. Network's going to be the way to build the community. I also have a great community in Charlotte because of networking. Any of my friends or family will call me that's in the area. Hey, do you know somebody for this, for that? And I always do because of the community I built with networking. Of course, every person you network with isn't going to be in your community, but you will find your space if you get out there consistently. Every networking event is not going to be a gold mine where you find all these amazing people, but you have to go through the frogs to get to the prince per se. So I would just say get out there, network, don't get discouraged. You just have to keep going. So many people fall short because they don't have that consistency. They'll start when it feels good, but then now, they allow their emotions to deter them from having that consistency. So you got to have discipline paired with consistency to find that community.
Yeah. And I think people need to understand networking isn't only about you going out pitching what you do.
Right.
It's a give and take relationship,
Mhm.
right? You help me, I help you. So like you said, for me, realtors have been a great resource. They have been great networking partners because, I'm not looking to get a realtor's license. I don't care how much money they make. Insurance is my lane.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that say, oh, real estate agents make a lot of money. Let me go get my real estate agent. I mean, my real estate license. Or PNC agents make a lot of money. Let me go do, I kind of stay in my lane. So the way those relationships work is I help you, you help me.
Right.
So, my realtors, when I come across clients that may be looking to get into a home, it's like, boom, I have somebody I can refer you to.
Hmm.
And same with them, somebody that just bought a home. Like you say, for a lot of people, that's their biggest asset.
Yeah.
So they send them to me to show how to protect it through insurance. So there's that give and take relationships. I think a lot of people just go in looking to see what they can take. And that's why some people have um, a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to network. It's like, man, all these people in this room are going to try to sell me. But I think you understand from a business perspective, you're more attractive when you bring something to the table, right? So I definitely love how you're doing that. And you supporting agents and finding these things out, is that kind of what led you to start the mentoring program to kind of share the lessons you've learned over the years?
It's so funny how it started. So originally, people would always be asking me questions on social media, on YouTube per se, and I would say just book a call. And then I saw a lot of people started booking calls, so I started charging for it.
Smart.
40 dollars, 30 minutes, whatever. And I was just like, because I have to be compensated for my time because people will drain you. until they can't anymore, and then they're gone. And then I had this lady that moved from a black lady moved from France to America. English was her second language, and she was like, "I need help passing the exam. I saw your YouTube. Can you help me? Just let me know how much it costs." And I don't remember how much I charged her, but I was like, I don't really have the time, but if I'm gonna do it, I'll charge her like $200 an hour. And she needed like 10 hours, and she was like done. And then from there, somebody else did it, and I was like, oh, it's like it's money in this, just helping them pass the exam. But that's not really where I wanted to stay. And then from there, I've probably talked to 500 agents that have booked calls with me, and all of them have the same problems. They have the same pain points. They have the same questions. So I just compiled all that information and made the mentorship program from there, and then just launched it. And I had like a ton of agents just reach out and apply, and it's been going 2 years strong now. So I'm
Wow.
grateful for it.
Congratulations on that, man. That's thinking outside of the box.
And you have to though, like especially in business, like because I want anybody to be a consumer for me. So basically, I can sell to everyone except insurance agents. But now I can sell to insurance agents. So I'm
Mhm.
hitting it from both sides, but I'm able to generate revenue from you no matter who you are. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I tell people, like this license opens up so many doors for you.
it does.
Right. Yeah, you can make a lot of money selling insurance.
Mhm.
And but there's also other ways that you can make it, like you say, mentoring, coaching, training, giving people access. There's so many different ways. And that's why having that entrepreneurial mindset is so important
It's
in
important.
this industry. Unfortunately, some guys come in and they get their license and they just want to be an insurance agent. And don't get me wrong, it's nothing wrong with that. But this becomes easier when you're able to take advantage of some of those other opportunities. Right. And people always say, well, I don't feel like I'm in a position to help anybody. I always say, if you're one step ahead of them, then you can help. You don't have to be, leaps and bounds ahead of people. As long as you know something they don't know, you can
That's
provide
it.
value.
Yeah.
And to your point, I love what you said, because again, some people are afraid to charge because they don't understand their value. But
Yeah.
that's relative to the person on the other end, right? The lady that moved from France was like, you know what? The quickest way to get from point A to B is Kenny. And
Yeah.
I'm willing to pay for that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are like, no, I don't want to charge. It's like, no, you have to understand your value. There are people out there that are looking for someone like you. And you've done it in a really credible way, because you haven't been afraid to share your experience through social media,
Mhm.
right? Your day in the life and all that kind of stuff. So I want to talk about social media a little bit.
Yeah.
There's this back and forth conversation on social media, influence versus impact, right? You see all these people on social media, like you said earlier, you can make $100,000 working part time, 2 days a week, 2 hours a month, work selling life insurance. That's not really the case, and a lot of these people aren't even licensed, right? They just have a following because they got a nice setup, and
Right.
they're interesting to people. But then there's somebody like you, right? Do you feel like you've kind of moved into that influencer space on social media?
I hate to use that word because when I think of influencer, I think of like, oh, you have like a ton of followers. On Instagram, I have like 6,000, which I, think is a decent amount. But when I think of influencer, I think 10,000. But then I look back at people that I know personally that have 30, 40, 50, 60,000 followers and haven't monetized it at all. You know what I mean? So then I would say, yes, I think I am an influencer because I've seen my influence directly. Like people will tag me in posts and say, like Kenny J. Like when I started posting deal close on my Instagram story. Now I'm seeing agents all over starting to post that. But the reason why I was doing that and I explained it on my story is because when I post this, I then get more leads because people are like, he's busy. People want to work with people that are
Yeah.
busy. So I've
Yeah.
seen my impact from content, what I do, the day in the life, because before I was doing it, it was nobody doing those type of videos on YouTube. But I mean, that's the thing. I saw this post that said you can't get mad when you want to be an influencer, and then people are influenced. So I'm flattered. I'm grateful that people are taking the initiative because there needs to be more spotlight on the insurance industry. So
Yeah. No, and I see you definitely have impact, right? Because sometimes the numbers are shallow, right? It's really about the engagement and the impact. So I love that you understand the difference
Yeah,
between the two. I mean, yeah, you can have a million followers, but nobody's really engaging. They're just kind of scrolling, and you just are one of those people that they follow.
right.
I don't want you to give away your secret sauce. Obviously, if people want to work with you, we're going to share in a minute how they can reach out to you. But are there any tips that you freely give to people? Because there's this concept with some people around social media, like it's too late to really get into the social media game. It's a really competitive space. I don't have the time. I don't know what platform. I don't know how many times to post, what to post, or whatever. Just a quick getting started tip. Is there anything you would kind of advise agents that are struggling to get into social media to do?
Just post it. People think, oh, it has to be perfect. I have to have this cinema setup. But people want the content. People want the realness of who you are. And other people aren't posting it. I see that more in like my older mentees that are 40, 50, 60. Like, I don't want to get on social media. And I say, well, what big brand do you know? What company do you know that doesn't have a social media presence? And they're like, none. And I'm like, exactly. Just get up there, post. Your first post isn't going to be perfect, but that's why you just evolve into what you want to be over time, but you have to enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. I go back to a lot of my videos from 2020, 2021, and I'm just like so cringe. Like, I can't believe I posted that, but I wouldn't be here today without those videos. I had to set some type of foundation to elevate from.
Yeah.
So
No,
just,
and you do grow. I don't do a ton on social media, but I do enough to be consistent,
right.
right? So people look for me. I do have some type of, social media footprint.
Hmm.
And, years ago, I think during COVID, I really started leaning into and studying social media. And, you have people like Gary Vee,
Hmm.
who's still consistent to this day. And his message is very similar to yours. Just do it, right? You'll get better over time, but just do it. People overthink things, and they never launch. Failure to launch. They just keep in their head mulling over. I got to get a better camera. I got to get a better mic. I got to get a better setup. And then you just look up, and 5 years have passed, and you've been left behind. So I love what you just shared. Just do it.
Just do it.
And it's funny because you've even seen like a transition in social media where there was a point where everything was highly edited,
Mhm.
right? You there was kind of a separation from some people on social media, the people getting started because yeah, they had invested in this, that, or whatever. They had the really nice cameras shooting things in 4K in studios, but it seems like it's kind of swung back to just raw content now.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah,
I
it's authentic.
believable. You know what I mean? Like, I do have times where I do like high quality content. And a piece of advice I would give, if you're wanting to post quality content all the time, Instagram's more the place for that. Instagram is more like, we're going outside, put your best clothes on. But TikTok's more, you in the bed with your bonnet. I mean, I wouldn't recommend anybody doing that, but however you reach your audience. Whenever I post professional content on TikTok, it doesn't really do as well as it does on Instagram. So just know, like, which way you want to go with that. If you want to do more real content just with your phone, I would say go on TikTok. You can reach a lot of people on there. But I will say the place where I get most of my business is Facebook, just because it's an older demographic. They're a little bit more serious about things. So Facebook has always been really well for me. And then, with the different groups on there, I'm in a lot of like business owner group chats or groups on Facebook, and they want to support Black businesses. So I get a lot of leads from there as well.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So 4.5 years in the industry, seen a lot of change over the years. Even with your level of success, what would you say today is your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge today, I would say I'm going through like a scaling period. And that's been my biggest challenge that I've really enjoyed is just scaling the business, which is why I teach that in the mentorship program, because I didn't plan for scaling from day one. And I wish I would have, because everything would have been a lot easier. So in January, I went to London for 2 weeks for some business stuff, and I didn't have any access to my laptop or whatever. So I had to hire two people to come on and pretty much run it while I was gone, and that taught me that I should have been doing this. I should have had systems in place so when I do bring somebody on, they just fall right into the mix. So now I'm just scaling. I'm wanting to hire more people. I'm wanting to really step away from the agency side to focus on coaching around the country. Is really where I want to go. I always will love insurance and love educating people, but I know that my purpose is bigger than agency level. So
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think when you get to a certain level of success, scaling is necessary,
it is.
right? One of my early mentors told me your first six figures is on you, you know. Mid to high six figures is you and a team.
Mm-hmm.
And that scaling is really what allows that to happen. High six figures and seven and up, you have to be able to scale. You have to have that support system. You have to have that team. And
Mm-hmm.
it's inevitable, when you start seeing levels of success because more people want access.
Yeah.
And I kind of in that same space. I transitioned a few years ago and do a lot more training and coaching than I do actual selling. Right? It's very rare
Yeah.
that I'm doing anything on the business side outside of coaching, training, mentoring, because that's just a natural evolution. When you get good enough at something, people that want to follow in those footsteps, they want to pay for access,
Yeah.
right? So you have to have things in place. And that's two things I see. I love that you said that because two things I see that a lot of Black agencies miss is a plan to scale and a succession plan, right? Because unfortunately, a lot of Black agencies are small. They're one, two man shops, and when whoever's running that agency leaves, that's the end of it, right? The agency is gone. There's no succession plan. The kids, anybody to kind of run that thing. So I love that you're talking about that. So you mentioned something that I want to kind of wrap up with here that you just said. A lot of change you've seen. You got a lot of growth going on. A lot of things have happened since you were here with us 3 years ago. Where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? What's on the radar for Kenny?
That's exciting to think. The next 3 to 5 years, it's funny because I have like a journal beside my bed that I read every morning of what I actually want my life to look like. And it's full time coaching, having a staff of 10 people, running the agency, and we're just focusing on marketing. I tell anyone I'm not an insurance agency, I'm a marketing agency that just happens to sell insurance. And I
Hmm.
want to just take the marketing to just an entirely different level of just quality, the ideas that I have, and things like that. And I just want to coach. I want to be, on the big stages, speaking, motivating people because if we can get people's mindset right, they would go so much further. But we're the biggest guard, we're the biggest prison. Honestly, it's not behind the bars of concrete; it's in our mind. And
Yeah.
many people have just such limiting beliefs, and you can only go as far as your mind will let you go. So if we can just reprogram people's mind to think differently, I think we would have a lot more successful Black agents in the industry. So I just want to be, across the country, just helping people and motivating people to just do better and having some crazy marketing going on.
No, I can definitely see that for you. I can definitely see that for you. So, in wrapping up, let me just say this. Thank you again,
Thank you.
Kenny, for joining us. I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time, we speak. We got some things coming up that I definitely want to, connect you with. You're doing some great things in the industry. Let people know how to reach you.
Yeah. So my Instagram and my YouTube is Kenny J TV. Type it in. I promise you I'll come up. My website is www.remedy. So REMEDY, and then I as in insurance, W as in wealth, B as in builders.com. You can go on there. All my information is on there as well. And then also you will see the mentorship program if you were interested or just wanted to fill out the application. I call every mentee personally or applicant personally because I still want to keep that personal to me. I don't want my team having to call them because I'm the one that's pouring into these agents. So reach out to me if you have any questions.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks again, Kenny. I want to thank everybody that's watching this video. Do us a favor, please like, subscribe, and share. And Hats off to another great interview, another great guest, and we will catch you on the next episode of a More Than an Agent podcast.